to see the show.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. No one will be seated after the doors are closed.
It helps maintain the illusion.
You like spiders, right? The first Spider-Man film had made arachnophiles of moviegoers. All of a sudden, everybody loved spiders, and suddenly they were in everybody's homes as family pets. Well, maybe not.
You've stuck your webs in my business for the last time! Now you'll have this woman's death on your conscience!
The sequel to Spider-Man would build on that success and give us one of the very best superhero films ever.
I'm Spider-Man.
Spider-Man 2.
Four mechanical arms welded right onto his body. Guy named Otto Octavius winds up with 8 limbs. What are the odds?
Sam Raimi's 2002 film Spider-Man gave us an origin story of how a high school dork acquired the powers of a spider. He could stick to walls and shoot sticky goo from his body. He also managed to defeat his bestest bud's Looney Tunes dad and had to walk away from the love of his life in order to be Spider-Man. I once acquired the powers of a spider, which did give me the power to walk on walls, but only while heavily intoxicated. Also, having now sobered up, I may need to pop to the hardware store to pick up a few tubs of wall putty and a spatula. The first movie made a lot of money for Marvel Studios and Sony, but it also made a lot of moviegoers very happy. A Spider-Man sequel was a foregone conclusion, like what happened after Auntie Beryl won a trip on a suborbital spaceflight but forgot to take her motion sickness medication. During development of the sequel, multiple writers were hired to write drafts of the script, including Smallville creators Alfred Goff and Miles Millar, with a final screenplay by Alvin Sargent tying together all of the elements that Raimi had liked.
Any more bright ideas? I got a few!
Spider-Man 2 would take inspiration from several storylines from Spider-Man comics, and also a little bit from Superman 2, namely, the hero calls it quits. Peter Parker isn't having much fun. He's on the verge of failing his courses, he's lost his job delivering pizza, and the love of his life, MJ, is taunting him from billboards as her career takes off. His main source of income has become selling photographs of Spider-Man to the Daily Bugle.
I pay you because for some reason that psycho Spider-Man will pose for you.
Where editor J. Jonah Jameson delights in stirring up anti-Spider-Man sentiments to sell newspapers. Parker's best mate, Harry Osborn, is now a big wheel at Oscorp, and he's still obsessing over finding out who Spider-Man is, where Peter's link to the web-slinger is driving a wedge into the pair's friendship. Harry does introduce Pete to Dr. Otto Octavius. Peter bonds with the scientist over dinner with Otto and his wife Rosie, and is invited to see Octavius try to harness the power of the sun in the palm of his hand, blah blah blah. To aid Octavius with controlling his fusion project, cheap electricity forever, etc., he's got these 4 AI-controlled tentacle things that are governed by this thing on the back of his neck.
Which is why I developed this inhibitor chip to protect my higher brain function.
It's all good. It's AI. Nothing could possibly go wrong. He does talk about having the power of the sun in the palm of his hand, but look, if it were me, I probably would have chosen, just to be on the safe side, a test location somewhat more removed from a major population centre. Look, that's just me. I'm sure the experiment will go off without a hitch. But as this is a movie, what are the odds of A, things going swimmingly, or B, everything turning to shit? If you chose A, bless. But it is B. Oh god, it's B. The reaction gets out of control, threatening the city. See, I told you. Spider-Man whips it out. To stop a catastrophe where Octavius is wounded, his wife is killed, and Harry Osborn and Oscorp are going to take a massive financial hit the same day they launch their cryptocurrency, Harry Oscoin.
Oh no. No!
Peter Parker's spider powers are also starting to act up, deserting him at inopportune moments, leading him to ponder whether this is a sign that he's not really cut out to be Spider-Man. Imposter syndrome is real, but it really shouldn't stop you from crawling up a wall. Assuming, of course, you were already able to crawl up a wall.
Am I not supposed to have what I want?
Peter decided his performance anxiety is because of the burden of being Spider-Man and how the superhero stuff is detracting from the rest of his life. Peter decides to hang up his onesie and double down on just being Peter Parker, so he can get his shit together, try and get his academic career back on track. Peter Parker's prognosis for perpetual peace of mind is perplexing in that Peter is pleased as punch with how his pulling out of his role as protector of the populace is proceeding, but he does ponder if perhaps he's only pretending that his principles preclude him from performing perfectly as Spider-Man, the pugnacious protagonist. Help me, I think I need some oxygen. Look, in short, he ain't fooling no one. But hang on a sec, does that mean he's fooling someone? Look, anyway, Peter also reveals to Aunt May his role in Uncle Ben's death. She needs to process the info, and so she goes up to her bedroom, either to have a good cry or to play Animal Crossing. I can't say which for sure, but if I were a betting man, I would guess the former. Rewinding a bit. Otto was wounded when his experiment went awry, and just as some surgeons try to remove the AI-controlled tentacles, we get Sam Raimi, a director who honed his craft on kinetic horror films like Evil Dead, giving us the most Sam Raimi scene in any Spider-Man movie.
What are we gonna call this guy?
Dr. Octopus.
That's crap.
Science Squid?
Crap.
Doctor Strange.
That's pretty good. But it's taken.
Doc Ock is now driven somewhat mad.
Something talking.
His wife's dead and the tentacle AI is now controlling him, overriding his sense of right and wrong in favour of get it done. What's worse, the tentacles insist on controlling the television remote. Octavius wants to finish what he started, and to do that, he's going to need money.
Steal it? No, I'm not a criminal.
So he robs a bank, just as Peter Parker is there with his Aunt May, where she tries to get a loan from Jeff Winger.
Ow!
Doc Ock also needs some tritium, which is so rare you can't even get it with Prime free shipping, and so he does a deal with Harry Osborn. Spider-Man for the tritium. Look, I once tried to find some tritium on Facebook Marketplace and I just ended up with a busted 14-inch Sony CRT. Peter's got his life together and has managed to patch things up with MJ, even though she's now engaged to J. Jonah Jameson's astronaut son. But Peter has realised the world needs Spider-Man more than he needs to be Peter Parker. Ooh, how perfectly profound. But all of this excitement seems to have cleared Peter's head, with his powers returning just in time to confront Doc Ock.
What do you want?
I want you to find your friend, Spider-Man.
But first he has to stop a runaway train in the movie's biggest set piece. Peter experiments with the tensile strength of his web goo as it relates to slowing down a fast-moving train.
Just a kid.
And then, with Peter unmasked, New Yorkers band together to help their saviour, not a single person being a dickhead for social media clout. But regardless, Doc Ock clocks the arachnid and socks him one, delivering him to Harry Osborn, who, despite knowing that his friend Peter Parker was close to Spider-Man, was shocked. Shocked, I tell you, that Peter Parker was in fact Spider-Man. Just shocked. Doc Ock has also hung on to MJ as a hostage for some reason, and then Peter shows up. Doc Ock is blinded by the need to complete his work, or at least the AI-controlled tentacles think so. This whole power of the sun in the palm of his hand thing once again goes south, and they don't mean New Jersey.
Now what?
But somehow Otto regains control of himself in order to save the day. MJ now knows Peter's secret identity.
I think I always knew.
But she waits for her wedding day to tell Peter that it's her choice whether she loves him.
Go get him, Tiger.
And that is Spider-Man 2. The first sequel is very hard to get right. It's the difficult second album. Whereas often the script for a first iteration of a major franchise may have evolved over a very long period of time, sequels, especially to super successful films, often have to come together in a very short period of time. 2 years separated the release of Spider-Man and its sequel, Spider-Man 2. And we ended up with a film that flows really well. It has a character journey, lots of action scenes, and it works. Spider-Man 2 would be considered one of the best superhero films of the 2000s and beyond. Sam Raimi's direction shows him at the top of his game, mixing his signature moves. No other director uses a gimmicky camera zoom half as well. The scenes of the tentacles taking out a surgical team is thrilling. It's almost out of place, but the rest of the film is full of Raimiisms. Rover, get down from there. Tobey Maguire was always a little different from the comic version of the character, but had become a definitive version of Peter Parker for many because of this trilogy.
I'm just Peter Parker.
Peter Parker giving up his web slinging just to be a normal guy shows the superhero game isn't always all it's cracked up to be. There was also some possibility that Maguire would not be able to reprise his role as Peter Parker. He'd had a serious back problem that may have prevented him from returning, may have prevented him from walking, so a recasting process was undertaken, with actors like Jake Gyllenhaal named as a potential Peter Parker.
My back! Oh, my back!
Tobey Maguire returned, putting in a performance that's probably going to follow him for the rest of his career. Kirsten Dunst as MJ is a character who worked out in her head that there was a link between Parker and Spider-Man, but she's still working through things. Peter Parker has disappointed her so many times that she gets engaged to someone else, but once Peter becomes a bit more present, she's interested again. Also, she works out her astronaut fiancé is no Spider-Man. Rosemary Harris as Aunt May even gets in on the action in this film.
What do you mean? mean?
James Franco is back as the obsessive Harry Osborn, less a major character and more like somebody being set up as a future villain.
I'm here.
Dr. Octopus.
But I like it.
Of course you do. New villain in town. Doc Ock.
The Daily Bugle team and J.K. Simmons, Bill Nunn, Ted Raimi and Elizabeth Banks all reprise their roles. Simmons as Jameson again walks away with every scene he's in.
Call Deborah.
The caterer.
Tell her not to open the caviar.
It's at this point that Columbia Pictures and Marvel should really consider increasing on-set security to stop all of this cinematic larceny. Donna Murphy pops up as Rosie Octavius for a spell, and British actor Alfred Molina gives us a great villain. He's not villainous for the sake of being evil, he's just not in control of himself. Alfred Molina is great in most things. Yes, going back to his small role at the start of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Again with the spiders. Also, on a side note, can we all hold hands and send good vibes that somebody will officially release the 1992 BBC TV movie starring Alfred Molina, Trust Me.
The power of the sun in the palm of my hand. Nothing will stand in our way.
This is a movie where every little role is filled with someone you know from somewhere else. Emily Deschanel.
I'm not paying for those.
Joel McHale.
Yes, I see.
Asif Manvi.
You're fired.
Daniel Day Kim. I mean, look, voiceover legend Phil Lamar is just chilling there on the right. They also managed a few dead characters popping up, so we get some welcome return appearances from Cliff Robertson and Willem Dafoe. Bruce Campbell, star of Raimi's Evil Dead franchise, again makes a small role into a massive one as the Usher. And in a movie full of scene stealers, there are two characters who would almost rival J. Jonah Jameson.
Grant!
Mr. Ditkovich, Elia Baskin,
If promises were crackers, my daughter would be fat.
and his daughter. Spider-Man is a film that's confident in whatever it does. Almost everything lands, the emotional beats, the jokes, the effect sequences.
There you go.
Oh, thank you. Oh, have I been wrong about you?
We sure showed him.
What do you mean, we?
It's a lot more CG heavy than the first film, but such is the care taken that it's rarely too distracting. The use of digital stuntmen would at least ensure living stuntmen aren't crippled in order to show off live action versions of things that were originally conceived of by comic book artists in the 60s. Even for a CG heavy film, there's still a lot of practical elements in the movie. Spider-Man 2 used a spider cam, no relation, a camera that runs along a high wire, often used in sports, and now apparently Spider-Man movies. Also, why is my social media feed now completely full of spider influencers? The train sequence does push the limits of how convincing it looks, what's CG and what's not, or just maybe the rest of the film is pitched at a level where 2004 era visual effects just did their job really well. But it is a movie about a guy with the powers of a spider. The alternative to a CG rendition of Spider-Man swinging across New York's skyline was this. Composer Danny Elfman and director Sam Raimi had a major disagreement while working on this film. Other composers would contribute additional music to the film, and Elfman would call Spider-Man 2 a miserable working experience for him, which would probably explain why he wasn't involved in the third Spider-Man movie. Spider-Man 2, though, was a super successful film, became the third highest grossing film worldwide that year, but also a critical smash that would be hard to beat. That's the truth. Personally, this is one of the best superhero movies made up until the video was released in 2023. Top 5 at least. If not top 3, possibly even top 2. But look, if it's not in your top 10, then how about your top 20? And if Spider-Man 2 somehow only makes it into your top 20, what the hell are you using for your selection criteria? After the film's release, there was an extended version of the film made available. A version not labelled as a special edition or a director's cut, but as Spider-Man 2.1, a title that displays about as much imagination as an episode of the low-effort Amazing Stories spin-off, Mediocre Stories. Spider-Man 3 would come out 3 years later, and thanks to a less than happy development schedule, would ultimately undo quite a bit of the goodwill created by the first two films.
You were an embarrassment to him.
But again, that's a story for another day. If you enjoyed this review, please like and subscribe, leave a comment below, or check out some of our other videos. Excelsior.